You know someone like this. Maybe it's your uncle or your neighbor or someone your parents used to mention at the dinner table. They never had a flashy job. They drove the same car for 12 years. They didn't go on expensive vacations or wear nice clothes or talk about their portfolio at parties. By every visible measure, they looked like someone who was just getting by, and then they retired, comfortably, without panic, without having to go back to work at 68, because the math stopped working. They just stopped working when they were ready, and somehow the money was there. Meanwhile, you know someone else. Better salary, nicer house, newer car, more impressive title on their LinkedIn, and they're going to be working until they're 72, not because they want to, but because they have to, because the lifestyle took everything the salary produced, and then a little more, and 40 years went by, and the math is what it is. How does that happen? How does the person earning less end up with more? It seems like it shouldn't be possible. It seems like the math should work against them, but it doesn't. And understanding why is one of the most important financial lessons most people will never sit down and actually learn. My name is Arthur, and I spend way too much time thinking about money and why the people who look wealthy often aren't, while the people who look ordinary sometimes have more financial security than anyone around them realizes. If that gap has ever confused or frustrated you, hit subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. Let's start with a concept that explains most of this, because once you understand it, you'll see it everywhere. The concept is called the savings rate, and it is a far more powerful determinant of retirement security than income. Your savings rate is the percentage of your income that you save rather than spend, and it matters more than how much you earn for one simple mathematical reason. What builds wealth is not income, it's the gap between income and spending, invested over time. Here's a version of this that people find genuinely uncomfortable. Someone earning $40,000 a year who saves 20% of their income is saving $8,000 a year. Someone earning $80,000 a year who saves 5% of their income is saving $4,000 a year. The person earning half as much is building twice as much wealth per year, not because they're smarter, not because they got lucky, because they're saving more of what they earn. That example sounds almost too simple to be true, but the data backs it up. Research from the Center for Retirement Research at Boston College has consistently found that a household savings rate is a stronger predictor of retirement preparedness than income level. The person who earns less but saves consistently ends up better positioned than the person who earns more and saves little. And the reason this is so counterintuitive comes down to something we covered in a previous video: lifestyle inflation. When income rises, spending tends to rise with it, often faster. The house gets bigger, the car gets newer, the subscriptions multiply, and the portion of income actually going toward the future stays small or shrinks entirely. The higher earner builds a larger life, not a larger cushion. Now let's layer in the variable that turns small savings into serious wealth: compound interest. It's a phrase everyone has heard and most people underestimate, because the way compound interest actually works is deeply unintuitive, and you can't really feel it until you've seen the numbers play out over decades. Here's the core mechanic. When you invest money, it earns a return. Then that return itself earns a return. Then that earns a return. The growth builds on itself, slowly at first, then faster, then dramatically. Einstein may or may not have called it the eighth wonder of the world. The attribution is probably apocryphal, but the math is real, regardless of who said it. Let's put numbers to it. Someone who invests $500 a month starting at 25, earning an average annual return of 7%, the rough historical average of a broad stock market index fund, will have approximately $1.3 million by age 65. 40 years, $500 a month, $1.3 million. Someone who waits until 35 to start investing the same $500 a month at the same 7% return will have approximately $650,000 by 65. Same monthly investment. 10 years later, start. The result is half the wealth, not 90%, not 80%, half. That's compound interest. 10 years of early investment, allowed to compound for 30 more years, produces more wealth than 30 years of investment started 10 years later. The early years matter more than the later years. The first dollars in are worth more than the last dollars in. And here's what makes this so relevant to the question of who retires with what. The person earning less, but starting early and saving consistently, is giving compound interest, the one thing it needs above all else to work: time. The person earning more, but starting later, because they were spending everything on a lifestyle their salary could technically support, is giving compound interest less time. And less time is the one thing compound interest cannot overcome. There is a real-life illustration of this that financial researchers have documented in study after study. It goes by different names, but is sometimes called the millionaire next door phenomenon. The observation that in most middle-income American neighborhoods, the people with the most financial security are not the people with the most visible markers of success. They're the ones who spent less than their neighbors, saved consistently, and let time do its work. Their wealth is invisible because it exists in brokerage accounts and paid-off mortgages, not in things you can see when you drive past their house. Thomas Stanley and William Danko, who wrote the landmark research that eventually became the book, The Millionaire Next Door, found that the majority of millionaires in America are first-generation wealthy, live below their means, and are often in unglamorous industries. They're the plumber, the engineer, the school teacher who saved 40% of their take-home pay for 30 years, not the executive with the downtown apartment who bought a boat. Now let's talk about the other side of this equation, what higher income actually costs. When your income rises, your required savings rate to maintain your lifestyle in retirement actually rises with it. Here's why. If you're used to spending $80,000 a year, you need a retirement portfolio large enough to generate $80,000 a year indefinitely. At the standard 4% withdrawal rate, the commonly cited safe withdrawal rate from research by William Bengen, and later the Trinity study, you need a portfolio of $2 million to support $80,000 in annual spending. If you're used to spending $40,000 a year, you need a portfolio of $1 million. But here's the kicker. The person accustomed to spending $40,000 is almost certainly saving more of their income, which means their portfolio grows faster, and the lifestyle they need to sustain in retirement is half the cost. They hit their number sooner at a lower income with fewer working years required. The higher earner, if they've allowed lifestyle inflation to eat their raise every time it came, needs more and has built less. They often don't realize this until they're in their late 50s and run the numbers for the first time. That conversation between a financial planner and a 58-year-old who earns well and has built little is one of the more common and more brutal conversations in personal finance. But here's where most people get this wrong when they hear this argument. They hear, spend less, and they think, deprive yourself. They hear, save more, and they think, sacrifice your life today for an imaginary future. And so, they don't do it. They tell themselves they'll save more when they earn more. They tell themselves that the lifestyle they've built is what they've worked for. And they're not wrong to want comfort, but they're making an assumption that isn't always true, that more income will automatically mean more savings. It usually doesn't, not without intention. The practical move here is a specific one. It's the same pre-commitment concept I talked about in the video on feeling broke at $70,000 a year before your lifestyle adapts to a new income level, which happens fast, usually within a few months. You intercept it. You set your savings rate as a fixed percentage of income, not a fixed dollar amount. And whenever your income rises, your savings rate rises with it automatically because it's a percentage rather than a number. If you're currently saving 10% and you get a raise, you increase the automatic transfer so it remains 10% of the new income. Better yet, you push it to 12 or 15. The key is that the lifestyle never fully expands to meet the new income because the savings intercept the raise before the spending can claim it. The specific target worth knowing about is the concept of a 50% savings rate. It sounds extreme. Most people's reaction to it is immediate rejection, but researchers studying early retirement, people who actually retire in their 30s or 40s, consistently find that the single variable separating them from their peers is not income, it's the savings rate. People who retire early are not universally high earners, they are universally high savers. And they achieve this not through misery, but through a deliberate decision about what their money is actually for, made before lifestyle inflation had a chance to make the decision for them. You don't have to retire early. Most people don't want to, but the principle applies at any savings rate. Higher is better, and earlier is better. And the gap between spending and saving, not the income, is what determines the outcome. The person with the modest salary who drives the 12-year-old car and takes 2-week camping trips instead of European vacations is not losing the game. They may be winning it, quietly, invisibly, in a way that won't be visible until the moment they stop working and discover that they can. And here's the part that most high earners genuinely don't want to hear. The discomfort is not in the saving, it's in the comparison. Living below your means feels fine in isolation. The problem is that your neighbors, your colleagues, your social media feed, and your own internal sense of what your salary should look like, all of those things are constantly calibrating upward. The car you drove at 22 felt fine until your salary doubled. The apartment that seemed like a step forward feels like a step backward once your friends start buying houses. The lifestyle comparison is where the treadmill lives. The person who retires early or retires comfortably on a modest income has usually done one specific psychological thing. They've decoupled their identity from their spending. They don't use consumption as a signal of progress. Their self-worth is not indexed to their car. And because of that, the lifestyle inflation treadmill doesn't run as fast for them. They have more margin, and margin, invested over decades, becomes freedom. There's also a tax dimension to this that's worth understanding clearly. Every dollar you save inside a tax-advantaged account, a 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, grows differently than a dollar saved in a regular brokerage account. In a traditional 401k, you contribute pre-tax dollars. That means a dollar that would have been taxed at, say, 22% is instead invested whole. It grows whole. You pay tax when you withdraw in retirement, presumably at a lower rate. In a Roth account, you contribute post-tax dollars, but everything grows tax-free forever. Both structures give compound interest a meaningful advantage over a taxable account. Someone who maximizes their 401k contribution to the IRS limit, $23,000 in 2024, and has an employer match is effectively getting a raise they never see in their paycheck, a tax deduction they benefit from immediately, and compound growth that is largely sheltered from taxation for decades. This is not complicated. It is not exotic. It is the most straightforward wealth-building mechanism available to the ordinary working person, and the majority of Americans who have access to it are not using it fully. The person who retires comfortably on a modest income usually is. This brings us back to the original question. Why does the person earning less sometimes retire richer? The answer is not luck. It is not inheritance. It is not a secret investment strategy or a hot stock tip. It is a handful of ordinary decisions made consistently over a long period of time. Start early because time is the multiplier. Save a meaningful percentage, not a token amount. Let the savings rate rise with income before lifestyle catches up. Use tax-advantaged accounts because every tax dollar saved is a dollar compounding. Keep fixed costs low because low fixed costs create the margin to save. None of these decisions are complicated. None of them require a finance degree. All of them require something rarer: the decision to treat your future self as someone worth building for before your present self has fully spent everything available. The financial security you build over 40 years doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up in what you drive or where you live or what you order at a restaurant. It shows up once, at the end, when the question changes from "how much do I make" to "how long can I last?" Make sure you're building the answer to the right question.